Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Cigna and Achilles panel on building resilience. Thank you for joining us to discuss this vitally important topic. I'm Jonathan Prokup, the moderator for tonight's event, and it's my privilege to welcome you to what will be an enlightening discussion. I'm joined this evening by a panel of experts on resilience, individuals who, by their own lived experiences, have developed an understanding of what it takes to build a life of resilience. Our panel includes Dr. Nicole Saint Clair, a medical principal at Cigna, Master Sergeant Cedric King, Staff Sergeant Earl Granville, both of the Achilles Freedom Team. It's fitting for Cigna and Achilles to co-sponsor this event. For over a decade, we've both shared a profound commitment to helping wounded veterans and people with disabilities achieve healthy lifestyles. Year after year, Cigna and Achilles partner with one another to sponsor athletes in high-profile races. Cigna's president and CEO, David Cordani, and other Cigna leaders have dedicated countless hours through our partnership with Achilles to guiding athletes through many races. In 2020, Cigna became the presenting sponsor of the Achilles Freedom Team. And in that capacity, Cigna is dedicated to supporting the Freedom Team athletes while they stay safe, healthy, and active in this ever-changing environment. I've had the good fortune for the past 8 years to run with Freedom Team athletes, with Cigna customers who are recovering from illnesses and injuries, and with athletes from my home chapter in Philadelphia. It's a privilege to share the road with athletes who don't just talk resilience, they live resilience. Our athletes have seen some of the toughest challenges that life has to offer, and their ability to adapt, to advance, and to achieve can teach us all about the power that resilience can bring to our lives. To get started with our panel discussion, I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Nicole Saint Clair, medical principal here at Cigna. Dr. Saint Clair is a board-certified OB/GYN based in Seattle, Washington. She joined Cigna in 2015 in the Clinical Performance and Quality Team, providing women's health subject matter expertise. She subsequently transitioned to consumer health engagement, where she leads a multidisciplinary team working to improve health through coaching, chronic disease case management, and care delivery innovation. Prior to joining Cigna, Dr. Saint Clair practiced as an OB/GYN. She led a large group of doctors and midwives, supervised medical residents, and oversaw a busy labor and delivery unit and special care nursery in a statewide health system. Dr. Saint Clair was designated a top doctor by Seattle Metropolitan Magazine in 2015 and remains in the Pacific Northwest with her husband and children. Dr. Saint Clair, thank you for joining us this evening. Let me start with the obvious question. Why resilience?
Well, thank you, Jonathan, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you for the opportunity to participate with you today. I have such respect for the work that Achilles International does, and it's really my privilege to talk to you about resilience. So to your point, why resilience? In the last year, we've experienced a lot of difficult things, starting with the obvious, a once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic that has affected all of our lives in ways we could have never imagined before this. That ranges from the unthinkable loss of 500,000 American lives, and that number increases daily, but even to just the day-to-day uncertainty and anxiety we feel, not being able to follow our normal routines, not being able to lean on our loved ones the way we might like while trying to maintain physical distance. And then on top of that, dealing with the loneliness and isolation that can come from months of sheltering in place. As if all of that weren't enough, 2020 also brought us national political unrest, horrifying racial violence, and all of this was in the backdrop of catastrophic storms and raging wildfires. So really what we need now more than ever is resilience. Resilience to really get us through these tough times and to the better days that we know are waiting for us ahead.
And so we will bring her back just momentarily. But Dr. Saint Clair was talking to us about how difficult the past year has been. And it's important to stress that we've each experienced those difficulties on our individual levels. We each experience them from perspectives of our individual selves, whether it's income, race, neighborhood. And it's important that we have compassion for one another and understand how we each have been going through those times and what we each have been feeling throughout the past year. When Dr. Saint Clair returns, she will be talking with us about the Cigna Resilience Index, a way that Cigna has been able to characterize and quantify resilience, and figuring out ways how Cigna and how Cigna can work with our customers to increase our levels of resilience. Through our research, we've been able to identify the circumstances in which adults and children both grow their resilience and through which their resilience is also diminished. Until Dr. Saint Clair is able to return, I think what we'll do is we'll move forward in our program to talk with our Freedom Team athletes. If there's one thing I think we see in and can learn from the Achilles community, it's the power that we each have, not only to strengthen our own resilience, but also to help those around us. So I'd like to turn to our Freedom Team guests, who each can, I think, in a very personal way, talk to us about the power of resilience, having confronted some great challenges through their service, and having demonstrated the power of resilience in response to those challenges. First, we're going to hear from Earl Granville, who served 9 years as an infantryman in the Army National Guard, with deployments to Bosnia, Iraq, and Afghanistan. On his final tour, he lost his left leg through the knee to a roadside bomb while on patrol. Earl retired out of the Army as a staff sergeant with many awards, such as the Combat Infantryman Badge and the Purple Heart. Earl is now pursuing his bachelor's degree in counseling and human services at the University of Scranton and works for many nonprofits, such as Operation Enduring Warrior, the Oscar Mike Foundation, and Warrior Strong. Earl, we just heard Dr. Saint Clair talk about how resilience is like a muscle that can be strengthened. Our audience would like to hear about how you've learned to strengthen your resilience through the challenges you've faced and how you've come out stronger because of it.
Absolutely. First of all, I'd like to say, Jonathan, thank you so much for that introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time tonight. A little bit about my background is I joined the military. I feel like maybe for selfish reasons. I joined for maybe to get a college education. And then people can look at it one way or another, but my twin brother Joe talked me into joining. And as I moved forward in basic training, 9/11 happened, and I realized this was more than just a college education at this point. It's for something bigger than myself. Joe and I went to Bosnia together. We then volunteered to Iraq, where we both re-upped our contracts. And like mentioned, in 2008, I lost my leg from a roadside bomb, and 2 of my comrades got killed that day, Specialist Derek Holland in Wind Gap, Pennsylvania, and Major Scott Haggerty in Stillwater, Oklahoma. But I felt pretty optimistic moving forward. I wasn't going to let this define who I am. My time at Walter Reed, I've seen men and women around me and seeing their capabilities with much more serious injuries. And I realized this is not going to be the end. Unfortunately, more tragedy happened when in 2010, while on active duty, my twin brother, Staff Sergeant Joe Granville, took his own life. And I have to tell you, losing my leg was pretty easy after dealing with such a hardship. How could I get this second chance and have my own twin brother take his away? I found real quick through my recovery, after dealing with such a mental breakdown and trying to understand what is happening in my life at this moment, is I started being involved in my community. And sometimes learning that vulnerability of the weight you are carrying and reaching out to those around you, it really can be a strength. And I found myself being resilient, reaching out to those around me, and also helping out those in need, and the importance of being a part of something in my community. That's why I work for these charities quite a bit, because it helped build my resiliency and the men and women around me. And finding a mission after taking that uniform off, of helping those in need in situations like I was faced with losing a limb, being a part of the Achilles Freedom Team, how important that was in reaching my physical goals of running marathons, and even beyond that in the organizations I run, helping men and women who are faced with their injuries get through a Spartan race, or we help a few climb Mount Rainier. And what I found is I don't have to carry this weight alone, because beyond the missions that we have within our organizations and what we do, it also helped me find that path of resilience of the community around me. You know, understanding that I don't have to carry this weight by myself. And I started filling my life with purpose once again, developing a new passion in physical fitness. And once again, just like when I wore that uniform, being a part of something bigger than myself. And what this ended up doing, I found the recipe to find these 3 Ps of purpose, passion, part of something, was a good attitude. Taking that leap out of my comfort zone as well. And sometimes showing that vulnerability is a huge step out of that comfort zone. But with the right community around me, I realized that how important it could be and understand that I don't have to carry this weight by myself. And that's my mission now. If anybody out there who's struggling in what they're facing, their demons they're facing, or the adversity that holds them down, let them know that they're not alone in this. And as a community, to help find that resiliency and move forward. Because I feel like as a community, we the people, that's where we're going to be achieved. That's where we're going to achieve and be accomplished things that you can ever dream about. And I have a little example of what I have right here. So what this is, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the charities I run with. We carry this out with us, and it's called Cindy the Cinder Block. What Cindy represents is that heavy mental adversity that we all face as human beings: guilt, stress, depression, anxiety, loss of a loved one. Like we mentioned before, the situations with COVID right now, this past year has been tough on a lot of us, and we're all facing this differently. But what I understand, it's up to us, we the people, to look after each other more than ever. So when I take this out on our runs, we usually run as a team, and we all take turns carrying the weight together. And that's the same up in here. In the adversities that we are faced right now, let's help find that resiliency, that mental toughness, and understand you don't have to carry this by yourself. But all I ask you is, when you're out there asking for help, understand it's also your responsibility to share that mental toughness. When you find it, pass it off to somebody else as well, so they don't have to carry their adversity by themselves as well. So if you're ever out in New York City at the end of June, come join us with the Achilles Freedom Team in Cigna. Every year I get out there for Hopes and Possibilities, and we carry this cinder block together. So I look forward to seeing you all out there. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Earl. Really appreciate you sharing your story with us. It takes tremendous courage to speak openly about experiences that difficult. And you touched before on the importance of being honest and vulnerable about when we're hurt and what it will take to help us rebuild. Are there additional ways you'd like to note about how we can help others feel comfortable about being vulnerable with their friends and loved ones, and knowing that they can say, I need help because I'm hurting?
Jonathan, I truly believe the relationships we build with one another, they could go such a long way. And it might sound watered down, but it's watered down, and you hear it all the time, because I truly believe in its honesty of how kindness can really go a long way with each, everybody out there as Cigna clients and employees, whatever may be out there. You are a community, and those relationships you build in that kindness, it's important. And maybe you might notice somebody on those bad days. So that's when those kindness comes into play. And just a little question of, how's everything going? You'll never know how far that can go.
Fair enough. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We're going to turn things back now to Dr. Saint Clair, who we've gotten reconnected with. And Dr. Saint Clair, I think we may have lost your audio right as you were talking about resilience is defined as that capacity to. So I'm going to turn it back over to you and let you continue.
Thank you. I'm sorry for these technical difficulties, but absolutely, that's what I was saying. Resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, which of course is a concept that's very well known to this audience. But at Cigna, we wanted to be able to characterize and quantify resilience and look at ways that we might be able to increase our own levels of resilience. So through our research, we developed a resilience index, which allows us to measure an individual's resilience level and generated tools that we can use to build our own resilience. Our study included both adults and children as young as 5 and found that most all children begin with a similar level of resilience, regardless of their backgrounds, including race, ethnicity, family education, or income level. And that kids in general have a pretty high level of resilience at baseline. This resilience persists until the early teenage years, where it may begin to drop rapidly. And unfortunately, external factors such as race do affect the level of the resilience drop that's seen in the teen years, with Black children experiencing the largest decline in resilience during this time. This is highly impacted by social and societal factors as well, such as feeling if they fit in with their school or community. So feeling like you don't fit in is associated with lower resilience, as well as just dealing with racism and economic uncertainty. The decline in resilience does continue, unfortunately, for all Americans moving from teen years to adulthood. And our study identified that 60% of American adults, so that's 3 out of 5 people, regardless of their race or background, have their resilience in jeopardy. This means that 60% of us are really struggling to bounce back from hard times. This reduced resilience leads to practical problems in our lives. Those with lower resilience were found to have lower performance at work and school. For both children and adults, having lower resilience was linked to worse physical and mental health, higher stress and anxiety, lower self-esteem, and not only lower academic achievement, but also lower academic aspirations. And I think that's really significant because you can't achieve what you don't aspire to. For adults, lower job satisfaction and increased employee turnover was seen, as well as reduced professional performance and ambition, which mirrors what we saw in the children. All aged Americans with lower resilience were found to have a harder time coping with the impact of COVID-19. So really, we need to take a look at resilience. And thankfully, we also found in that study that there are ways to grow your resilience. I personally like to think of resilience as the coat of armor that we're born with that helps us get through life. A variety of life experiences and circumstances will chip away at our armor continuously. And if we aren't able to reinforce those areas, then eventually our armor no longer can protect us. The Cigna Resilience Research Team was able to identify specific steps one can take to increase their resilience, thereby strengthening their armor. We know that through increasing our relationships and connections, as Earl mentioned, exposing ourselves to greater diversity, and recognizing mental health as a key component to our whole person health, we can build and maintain resilience. And there's also an acronym that we have identified called GROW, which stands for Ground, Recognize, Organize, and Work.
We will move on to Cedric and come back to Dr. Saint Clair to allow her to finish those comments. We're going to turn to Cedric King, also a member of the Achilles Freedom Team. Cedric is a graduate of the U.S. Army Ranger School. During his 3rd deployment in 2012 in Afghanistan, Cedric lost his legs to an IED during a reconnaissance mission. Since his injury, Cedric has earned numerous medals and awards, has run marathons, climbed mountains. I've always loved Cedric's quote, "Love comes from the part of us that is not visible from the outside. It's the part of us that you can't touch, but you can definitely feel." Cedric, thank you. Yours is I want to turn it over to you for your story.
No, hey, Jonathan, I want to thank you and for this opportunity and thank the Wi-Fi network for giving me a shot too. Thanks so much. I know when Dr. Sinclair comes back, she touched on just about everything that I wanted to touch on. I think that just looking back on it, I thank God for the, I know this may sound crazy, but I really thank God for him trusting me with this incredible trial and and tough time in my life. I know when we talk about resiliency, it's the ability to bounce back. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think I would have had the opportunity, even had the mindset to do this without the challenges that life had thrown at me from an early age. Cordania and I, we always talk when we see each other about being on the basketball team and how we weren't like the starters for the varsity, But I think that is the mindset that you got to have in life. If you feel like that you always have a chip on your shoulder, that's the thing that I had. And that's the thing that I know Earl had. When Earl and I talk all the time, it's always that mindset that's like, okay, I got knocked down. All right, now that knockdown was just an opportunity for me to strengthen myself. It wasn't personal. It wasn't like anyone had a grudge against me. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But at the end of the day, when I get knocked down, I look for it as an opportunity to come back even stronger. It's not an opportunity for me to fall down. This 2020 taught some people adversity. 2020 just proved to me that I was the fighter that I always thought that I was. And many of you, you look at 2020 and you're still here, doggone it. You are the fighter that you know that you can be, because look what we just came through. Hey, Jonathan, I look at this wall and every one of these medals, every single one of those medals back there, other than maybe two, I've been awarded because I was a part of the Freedom Team. And every now and again, I got to look back, especially when times get tough. I got to look back at the wars that I won. Obviously, we're not talking about real wars. I'm not talking about just Afghanistan and Iraq. I'm talking about the wars in life. You got to have somewhere that you go to, and you have to be able to see when you won the fight in life. You won a fight at some point in time in life. I'm not necessarily talking about a physical fight, but you won some sort of war on the inside. And every now and again, when I'm struggling and when life is getting the best of me, I got to return to those points and those places where I won, where I was standing on the high ground, where me and my compadres on the Freedom Team, where we won together. If you don't have something like that, maybe your screensaver, maybe a song that you listen to, maybe it's a dance that you do, maybe it's a coffee shop that you go to where everyone knows your name. Shout out to Cheers. But that's what you gotta do. You gotta have something in your life that you return to that makes you feel like you felt when you were standing on top of the mountain. I got this painting in the back. It's called Mindset is Everything. And maybe you can't see it, but on the top, there's a little kitten. And he's looking in this reflection of the water. And in the reflection, he doesn't see a kitten, or she doesn't see a kitten. The kitten sees a tiger. And when you go to whatever place that you have to go to, where you were reminded that you came out on top, you gotta see a reflection of a winner. You gotta feel it. You gotta see it. And I know this is all rah motivation stuff, but at the end of the day, too, you gotta have tools. So on one hand, you got to have tools. On the other hand, you have to have the mindset. And the tools were, I went back and I looked over my last 8 years as an amputee, and I actually broke them down into 5 steps. And the first thing is I wrote it down right here. I had to start with a clear why. Now I know that may be something that's pretty popular these days, but I had to have a clear why in the beginning. And when I see Joe and Janet show up at Walter Reed, they put a challenge before me. Say, hey, why don't you come out and finish this marathon with us? And that was the first time somebody ever just said, hey, look, you can do this. that put me on the path of having a clear, defined, quantitative why. I needed to get to the end of this finish line. It gave me a clear what, and it gave me a clear why. Very definite, very definite, very definite. And the next thing I had to do was I had to start moving. I had to get out there and train. And for you, maybe it's not a marathon, but for you, maybe it's overcoming a divorce. Maybe for you, it's raising kids. Maybe for you, it's trying to start a business up on the side. Whatever it is, you got to start. You got to start. I had to start. Earl had to start. Dr. Saint Clair had to start. We all have to not just have a clear why, but we have to have a tool that says, I'm going to begin. And I think the third thing, I just go back to it all the time, is this. I had to overcome the moments where after you start, it's going to get tough. It's going to get tough. Every time Cordani and I, we run a marathon, every single time. It's easy in the beginning, but there comes a point in time where it gets tough. And that's where you got to master the moment. That's where sometimes you can't even look at the end of the race. Sometimes you just had to get to the next step. Maybe sometimes you just got to get to the pillow at the end of the night, man. Sometimes maybe you just got to get to the car and be able to get to the car and get in the traffic and just get to the driveway sometimes. Whatever it is, get to where you can get to. Get to whatever you can get to. Take a break and start again. That's what we do when we get these medals. You get to a place where you have a respite and then you begin again. And I think the fourth step was just, hey, when things get really tough and you're all out of gas and you're taking a break and it seems like it's not working, you got to go back and revisit your why. Those are the times where it's mile 24 of 26 miles. I don't have any gas left. Cordani is tired of me making excuses. And in those moments, I got to return to why I did this in the beginning. And whatever it is, it's got to be strong enough to pull you through those low moments. And I think the last thing is this. Whenever we get to these finish lines, whenever me or Earl, we get to these finish lines, it's not just getting to the finish line and saying, man, I'm glad that's done. No, you got to get to the finish line with gratitude in your heart. Thanking the journey, thanking your body, thanking your bike, thanking your running shoes, giving gratitude for the journey. And if you miss this step, it's going to be too hard for you to start the next race. We all know that finish lines, they come with a little bit of rest, but they always come with another start. If you finish these races, if you finish these goals, if you finish these plateaus in life, if you get there with thinking that you just got to the finish line, wow, glad that's done. No, that's not the way we do it. We get to the finish line with a gratitude, thanking the journey for what it gave to us. Always in appreciation for what it gave to us. Not that it's over, but thanking that we had an amazing journey. Thanking the journey for the strength that it gave us to begin again one day. So, Jonathan, I've taken up enough time. I know that the doc is waiting to get in and start it again. But I just wanted to not just give motivation, but I also wanted people to walk away with tools. These are things that I had to learn, man. I had to go over my life and learn. Well, how did I go from losing both my legs in July of 2012 to running the Boston Marathon in April of 14? I had to do these steps, man. 21 months. I had to do these steps. Earl, which you might not know, is Earl runs full marathons with a cinder block. You want to talk about a weight? That takes mental fortitude. I look up to that guy, man. He's the resilience. He is resilience. That guy is resilience personified.
Thank you, Cedric. Speaking of someone who's shared the road with you, your spirit, your energy, they're infectious. And despite what you might say, I think we could all listen to you and Dr. Saint Clair and Earl talk all day about this because of the energy. It's almost impossible not to get swept up in it. and yet it's tempered by pragmatism, right? Start where you are and revisit your why.
Yeah.
And I think that energy that you and Earl show really infects the other Achilles athletes. And then even beyond that, you see it affecting the other people in the races you're in, right? When they see you, when they see Earl, when they see the other athletes, often passing them by, going even faster than they are, and they see that power of possibility from how both of you have responded to your injuries. So thank you, Ced.
Thanks so much.
I'd like to, at this point, just go back to Dr. Saint Clair, who has shown tremendous resilience, notwithstanding some technical difficulties. And Dr. Saint Clair was really picking up on something that I think Cedric was discussing as well, which are the practical tools, right, around how we build resilience. And Dr. Saint Clair was talking about the GROW model, right? Ground, recognize, organize. And I want to let her get to the last part, work, because I think that's a key component of this. So Dr. Saint Clair, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for bearing with me. Hopefully you can hear me okay now.
We sure can.
Okay. And, before I jump into work, I just want to touch on, Cedric and Earl have made excellent points. I love listening to what they had to say. And I really appreciated, Cedric, just now you talking about thanking the journey for what it gave to us, because I think sometimes that's the hard part. I know for me, that's the hard part. Sometimes we set our minds to a task and we decide we have to do it and we charge into it, but we don't, it's kind of like you want to hurry up and get it done and get through it without really taking the time to appreciate the journey. So I think that's such a critical thing that you called out. And so much of that is where the work and the growth comes. So that wasn't exactly my work, but I think that was excellent. Within our GROW acronym, there is some overlap though, because the work stands for work with your community for support. And this is just recognizing the fact that a lot of the time we really just can't go it alone, even if we think we can, or maybe we can go it alone, but that doesn't actually benefit us. It takes a lot of strength for a strong person to say, hey, I need help. And that's what we're asking you to do with this step. It's a combination of building those relationships and connections that we talked about earlier, and then also identifying your own individual support within your community. So again, that the GROW acronym, ground, recognize, organize, work. These are some of the tools that give us a framework to begin growing our resilience so that hopefully we can come out on the other side with our armor as strong as Earl and Cedric and many others. I would like to say as strong as Mandalorian Beskar, which some of you may know is the strongest steel in the galaxy. So with that, I have mentioned what I would like to cover, and I'll turn it back to you, Jonathan, for Q&A.
Thank you, Dr. Saint Clair, for sharing your wisdom and expertise around this topic. Early on in your comments, you highlighted something that we don't always appreciate, just how much we've experienced individually and collectively over the past year. And your coat of armor analogy is very instructive because the differing experiences affect each of us differently and leave each of our coats in a different state. And if there's one thing I think we see in and can learn from the Achilles community, it's the power that we have to not only strengthen our own resilience, but also to help those around us, right? As you noted, and we heard from Cedric and from Earl, a lot of times we can't go it alone, right? The importance of that connectedness, of that community, we need others. And many times others need us. And the more we strengthen our resilience, the more we share our resilience with others, the stronger we will all be. With that said, we're now going to turn things over to our Q&A session. We've received a couple of questions through the Q&A function. And so I'm going to start with one, but for anyone who's listening and has a question that they'd like to ask, please feel free to add it to the queue, and we will certainly try to get to it. Cedric, the first question's for you from Franklin. I know many of the same people, and prior to the injuries that you suffered in combat, Cedric, you and Franklin faced the death of a close friend, and you weren't always prepared mentally to deal with his death. Can you talk about how important it is to acquire the tools to deal with those setbacks before they occur? How do you build that resilience even before it's called upon?
Yeah, I think we all, if you're a veteran, it's going to be very difficult for you to not have someone you fought beside that we've lost due to combat or due to self-harm. And unfortunately for me, I've got more friends than I care to even tell you about that have taken their life by their own volition. It bothers me. God, it gets under my skin. We bring men and women home from combat alive. We bring them back home alive, and we cannot keep them alive, not because of the enemy, but because of the enemy on the inside. And I'll be honest with you, I've dealt with this thing called survivor's guilt. You know, I probably Earl can probably speak to it better than I can. But the thing that helps me is reaching out and making sure that we don't lose another one. The only thing that you have right now is right now. That's all you got. You don't have tomorrow. You don't have yesterday. What you do have is right now. And what you can do right now is pick up the doggone phone, man. The phone, look, you got the girls, you got the guy's number in your phone. You fought a war with these people. You got the number in your phone and you don't pick up and call. Well, right now is the only moment you have. And if you do feel guilty tomorrow, the next day, the day after that, it's because you did not do what you could when you had the moment, man. That's when I feel the most guilty, just being honest with you, John. And Franklin, if you're on the line right now, that's exactly what I felt. I felt guilt, not just because the person has hurt themselves, but because I didn't pick up the phone when I had the chance, man. That's what's going to make you feel guilty. You can't save somebody. All you can do is pick up the doggone phone and call, man. Reach out, send an email, drop by the house. Do what you can with this moment. That's all you can do. There's 1-800 numbers out there. I'm actually participating in a 22K march. Earl does several of these too. But the number 22 is so special in the veteran community because it's being gauged that right around 22 people per day who are veterans have harmed themselves. And at that rate, we're losing them at an astonishing level. We should be standing on top of the roofs shouting, let's get guys and gals help. They fought wars for our freedom. How in the world is the best that we can give them is a 1-800 number? How? How is that the best that we can give them is a 1-800 number? Not in America. Maybe that happens somewhere, but not here. Not with the best military in the world, not here. So I would just say, hey, Franklin, hey, I'll get off my soapbox. Earl, you could speak to this far better than I can, but use this moment. Use this moment.
Cedric, I feel like you nailed so many perfect topics right there because it all comes down to us to make that ability to reach out to each other, not letting, I mean, I gotta tell you, it even goes beyond our brothers and sisters in arms, even their family members as well. You talk about survivor's guilt. You know, I was a lone soldier of my vehicle that survived from an IED blast when Derek and Scott got killed. So it's now not just my responsibility to be in touch with Scott Haggerty's wife and 2 kids, Jonathan and Sam, but not just Derek Collins' mother, Kathy, I mean, that's not just now, I feel like that's now my responsibility, but it also helps me in my situation mentally when it comes down to, because I mean, I could take this one of two ways. One, I could let this, man, I can't believe, why did I survive? Why did I survive? Or I could take that other leap and say, you know what? I'm here, I'm alive. What is Derek? What is Scott? What is my own twin brother, Joe? Those aren't here now. How are they going to see in this big sky out there what my legacy is going to be? So I'm going to carry that weight for the Haggertys. I'm going to carry that weight for Derek's family, to understand that in those bad days from losing a loved one like such, that I'm still grateful to be here, and I'm always going to be here for you, because that is my responsibility now. So anybody out there, just remember, it all comes down to what I discussed before. We the people. It's not about me and it's not about you. It's about us, to carry that weight together. And like you said, Cedric, as simple as picking up that phone.
And Earl, let me just follow up on that with both you and Cedric. You know, I think from the civilian community, we often want to know, what can we do to help you, right? What can we do? Because obviously serving in the armed forces is a very specific experience. And if you haven't done it, can't relate. What can we do to support the both of you, the entire community, to really try to improve the outcomes that Cedric was talking about, right? Which we should all find unacceptable.
Yeah, I'll say this. I've actually reached out. I will say this: your CEO is not just all talk. He actually is. He's actually about action. And this is the thing. Like Cordani, he's been working in corporate most of his life. So when he takes the time and calls me or Earl or somebody from the Freedom Team, that's showing us this is what we should be doing with each other, regardless of when or where. He picks up the phone, calls me all the time. I just say, hey man, how's the training going? It's not just talk. We gotta do it. You want to, our military's motto is no man left behind, no soldier left behind. But if that's the case, it's not just on the battlefield, it's here. We're actually, I've actually reached out to Cigna, and they're actually helping us move forward with not just a phone number, but actual tool that is going to revolutionize the way that we handle returning veterans. It's going to revolutionize it. And one day we're going to be able to say this in our country, that veterans do not suffer from the suicide epidemic. It's going to happen within the next few years. And it's not going to be just talk or telephone numbers. It's actually going to be clinical help. And I mean, everything's better. The only thing that's not evolved over the last few years is the way that we handle veterans. Look at it. We got better phones. I got a TV right now that I can watch YouTube on. I got a computer right now that I can do whatever with, but the way that we handle veterans is no better than it was in Vietnam. How? Everything has evolved, but the way we handle veterans, and that's about to change. I'll go back on mute. Thanks so much.
Earl, anything you'd like to add on there?
I feel like, Cedric, you really kind of nailed it out of the park with this. I mean, everything absolutely right. And if there's anything, I'm just gonna be a little repetitive here. It like Cedric said, it's doing. Build those connections, build those relationships, even to our clients and employees and anybody else out watching there. Look at, going to your grind every day, doing your job. You're more than just coworkers, you're a community. So those bad days you're taking into work, understand there's people around you, that we all have those coworkers that we attract to at work, that those relationships we build. And it could be right there, that adversity that we are facing. It could be right from your left and your right. person you're having lunch with every day, the person you see in the parking lot every day when you're walking in the car, the person that's right next to you at the other desk, whatever it may be, those relationships as human beings, I truly believe is what's going to build that resiliency, battle that mental health, and understand we don't have to carry this by ourselves. Relationships go a long way, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Earl. I appreciate it. And I want to now turn back to Dr. Saint Clair for our next question. The past year has obviously been one of very profound changes in how we think about the issue of race in this country. And you touched on this a little bit earlier, but can you talk a little bit more how, if at all, does race impact resilience? And how do we see that through the research?
Sure. So, you know, one of the first things I was mentioning is that children, in the studies, we see that all children start with a similar level of resilience. But when you get to your teen years and this resilience starts to drop, that's when we start to see differences coming out that are across racial lines. And that's when we start to see, in particular, minority children, Black children, having a larger drop on the resilience curve than some of their other counterparts. This was identified in the study, both asking children and asking their parents, you know, of the perception of their children's stress and anxiety that they're seeing. And 2 out of 3 young adults young Black adults, I should say, felt particularly stressed about the recent death of George Floyd. At the time that this survey was being undertaken, was a little bit earlier in 2020, not too long after the George Floyd tragedy. And, you know, that was reflected in the studies. Obviously, that bothered everyone in the study. But in terms of how folks experience that, about half of the young Black students, 54% of Asians, and 46% of the Hispanic students who really said they identified racial discrimination that they had personally experienced in their life. And so those are things that chip away at their armor, and they need to have tools to build that armor, same as everyone else, while recognizing some of the unique challenges that they may be facing. There are also issues that can come up in the community in terms of, you know, community acceptance sometimes of mental health resources or other stigmas that can be carried. And I think the key that we address with resilience is, you know, we're talking about practical tools that can be applied by anyone that I think are very logical. And so really can span all groups. And hopefully through these tools, we can try to reduce some of the disparities and the drop in resilience and some of the disparities that we even see persisting amongst adults to help us all really raise our resilience levels to where they need to be in these times.
Makes a great deal of sense. Makes a great deal of sense. And let me follow that up by now taking your response, turning to Cedric and Earl, because one of the questions we got through the line was steps you've been taking. This is from Lisa, how you've been handling during the pandemic when we haven't been able to connect live with people, you know, in person. What are things that you've been doing in order to maintain your own strength, your own resilience?
Yeah, I'll take this one. I'll go first. For me, when you couldn't go to the gym, you know, it was almost like I got an excuse not to work out. It was almost like that for a couple of weeks, right? It was like, all right, as a matter of fact, we had just come off being down at Disney together, right? So part of me felt like, all right, well, I knocked out a dopey marathon already. I got cachet. I at least got another 2 or 3 months before I really got to work out again. But that is a slippery slope, all right? That's a very slippery slope. And unfortunately, it was springtime. It was coming around springtime, and I live in Atlanta. So it's already warm enough. So you can get out there and get the rest. And what we as a family, we would do is we'd go out and do a 5K every day. At some point in time, we walk to the clubhouse, walk back. That's 3 miles, and that's great. And then it became, all right, well, it's you start to hit burnout, you know, you're doing the same thing every day. So then we start to look at how important changing it up was. So biking, you know, here in the neighborhood, you bike a little bit. Maybe you get, you find a way to do your workout, your push-ups or something like that. We're cut on there. You got workouts on YouTube now, right? So you could do that. We got the Peloton now. So you just try to switch it up. And that became something to help us get to where when things did open back up, it's a little bit better. But it was tough in the beginning, man. It was really tough, really tough. The whole, I mean, look, it just everything was so repetitive. You couldn't go to the grocery store, none of that stuff. But then to the doctor's point, and even to Earl's point, that is where the gift is. It's right there in the challenge. It's okay, how is this coming to make me stronger? Not complaining that it happened, but okay, we can't go to the grocery store. Let me look in the bottom of this freezer. It's food in there that I hadn't seen in a couple of years. There's the chicken and there's the steaks right there. There's the wings. We got plenty of food. We become more resourceful, start looking for recipes. Next thing you know, I'm making cookies from scratch, you know, desserts, key lime pie. It didn't taste good, but I figured out how to do it. And that's the thing. I think you talk about resiliency at its core. It's this. It's tough, but it's coming because it picked you. Every challenge that we face in life, it's not coming to knock us off. It's actually picking you on purpose. It has your name in its Rolodex, and it's like, Jonathan, you're gonna go through this. It's just that 2020 picked all of us. Are you gonna allow 2020 to make you a stronger 2021 version of you, or did you allow it to turn you into a complainer? It's one of the two.
Amen. Thank you, Cedric. Thank you very much. Well, listen, Dr. Saint Clair, Cedric, Earl, thanks to each of you. I'm afraid we've reached the end of our journey this evening. But resilience is a part of the journey in each of our lives. We can exhibit resilience wherever we are in our respective journeys. And hopefully this conversation has given our audience some ideas, some tools, and some understanding for how they can each build their own resilience. Thank you, everyone, and be well.